Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayer's podcast. Coming to you today from beneath a large pile of gold. My name is Martin O'Dwyer, and I'll be your host today. And I'm trying not to move too much because today we're talking about dragon hordes. And joining me is your other host, Conor O'Brien. How are we doing, Conor?
I can smell you, Barrel Rider.
I've completely forgot he called him a barrel rider. Oh yeah.
Yeah, what a title, Barrel Rider. I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. We were chatting a little bit before, so like I had a really good session of D&D yesterday, DMing. We had an awesome session during the week as well. That was like probably one of my favorite we've ever had.
Oh yeah, I really forgot that was this week. That feels like so much longer.
I know. Yeah. I know, it's mad that like time and just how it's absolutely screwed now, and we're like still in the pandemic stuff. I keep thinking this entire week I've been walking around thinking it's 2020. Like every time I actually had to like think of it, like if I was like, oh, what date is it? And I'd be like, 2020. I'm like, no, it's almost 2022. Oh God.
Yeah, no, I keep doing that as well. I keep thinking that when people say 2022, I keep thinking like, sure, that's ages away. That's literally in a couple months.
Yeah.
It seems that the perception of time is really really warped. But I mean, yeah, like you said, we're kind of on the tail end of things for the most part. I mean, we still have to be careful with washing our hands and wearing our masks out in public. Yeah. I was in town today, shopping for suits for my wedding. Not for long, mind you, because we went to a couple of places and they had some stuff, but not a lot. And then we went to one place, and your man was like, "Oh yeah, when is your wedding?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's like next year, like next summer." And he's like, "Oh, you don't need to start looking until like February because everything we have now is like winter colors. And if you're having a summer wedding, it makes no sense for you to have a winter colored or like a tweed or anything like that as a jacket. So you might as well wait until there's brighter colored suits and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense, I guess." So that the what was planning on being a full afternoon of looking at suits and stuff like that turned into maybe a 40 minutes of looking at suits. But yeah, and then I got a coffee and Tara picked up her wedding dress, and it was a few different things.
Ooh, jeez, I can only imagine her reaction to the dress, considering her reaction to the giant Pikachu pop we got her for her birthday.
Yeah. When we got back, I did a run. I went to the shop to grab a few bits, and when I came back, I walked in the door, and Tara's mom was here, and she's like, "You're just in time." She just took it off again, and I'm like, "Oh, good."
Bad luck.
Obviously, I went out the door, and she's like, "Connor's gone. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like."
Yeah, bad luck and all that.
Yeah, exactly. We're not really superstitious like that, but that is actually one of the things we are adhering to. I've not seen her dress yet, so.
Yeah, screw it. Like, make up your own traditions. Do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're very much doing that.
But Conor, we were talking about this before the podcast. We were like, we should really stop because this would probably make it a good bit of time for the podcast, which was how my players absolutely dismantled a monster encounter that I had for them last night. And when I say dismantled, I mean like I'm trying to think of the biggest like blowout in combat sports I've ever seen. Oh, for any UFC fans, when Jorge Masvidal ran across the cage as soon as they said go, and in 8 seconds kneed a guy in the face unconscious, like just a flying knee, bam, right into his face, and the dude was down. The knockout, if you watch it, is actually 3 seconds. It takes 5 more for them to realize he's done. Now that's basically what my party did to a Clockwork Behir yesterday. And they're really cool. They're really fun monsters. And you know, they normally, as raw, they have 168 HP. So what I did was I give it max HP. I did the maths for the whole thing. I think it had around 250-ish HP. It lasted 2 turns. Mm-hmm. It lasted 2 turns, neither of which it got to attack on. Because sorry, I'll change that. Neither of which you got to take an action on of any kind whatsoever.
Yes, yeah. You alluded to some parts of this. I've started doing that now. I've kind of realized just through trial and error. As soon as a party of 4 or 5, you know, from the kind of 4 upwards, gets past level 10, even if you're adhering to like the guidelines and stuff like that about how you should scale your combat encounters and stuff, the damage output of your characters at that level still means that I just max it out. When you fought we had a session this week which was really good. When you fought the big guy in that session, I done up a stat block for him, and I did it out with the hit dice and the averages and stuff like that. And then I ignored that, and I just gave him max hit points because I'm like, he'll last a round and a half with you guys if I let him just go in that way with the average. So
We got a good few rounds out of that. We got like 4 or 5 rounds out of that combat though, didn't we?
I think you had a good 5 rounds, plus a couple afterwards that weren't quite combat. They were kind of like a loose initiative order. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. So Clockwork Behir,
Yeah.
which is what challenge rating is that? That's like
I think it's if off the top of my head, I think it's like CR. It's like 12 to 14 range. I think maybe.
yeah. Well, I was going to say 11. I think it's actually 11,000 XP you get for it. I could be wrong.
Give me a sec. I'll pull up my because I still have it on my D&D Beyond Encounter Builder.
I have it here. One sec now. Clockwork Behir. It's challenge rating 11. Boom. Got it.
Yeah, 11. Like, it wasn't meant to be, like, this is a boss fight, you need to mess... It was meant to be, like, this is, like, a mediumly difficult kind of battle. You know, it's meant to be a big imposing, scary creature to kind of set the tone for, like, you can possibly run into very intimidating things out here. And...
But just for context here now, I'm gonna do a thing. Because I'm looking at his health points here. I want to see what the maximum would be. So it's 16d12
plus 64.
16 by 12 plus 64. So that's 257 HP that he had going in.
Yeah. And it was all going really well until I rolled an initiative of 8 for him.
Yeah.
And then the lowest roll of my party's initiative was 8. And then I had a roll off between him and the monster to see who got to go first, because they both have a dex of +3. My blood hunter went first. And first round my tabaxi. No, I say this like kind of like jokingly and like, god damn it, they destroyed my monster, but it was awesome. It was really cool, and they just played it extremely well. Like, I can't really complain about it all that much, because it was an extremely effective use of their abilities. My druid Mandripe, otherwise known as Mike on this podcast, he straight away casts Bones of the Earth on this thing, so giant pillars just bind it in place. Failed the save, so now it has disadvantage on both dexterity saves and strength saves until it like breaks these pillars, because the spell doesn't end. You have to break the pillars to get out of it. But in my head, I'm going, okay, I could definitely break the pillars, but like just some of his attacks, right? But I'm like, in my head, I'm going, this will be fine. This is still not a big deal. What I'm going to do is, if I can't hit them on this turn with attacks, I'll just use the breath weapon, because they're all more or less in a kind of a loose line going down a hall into a wider area. Because the battle was basically, they were in a gatehouse that was locked with a mechanism, and then it was also in a null magic area, and they had to destroy the mechanism that was causing the null magic area for the doors to open. The doors opened, and that triggered the Clockwork Behir's protocol to come out and attack whatever opened the door.
Right.
And so yeah, just going lightning breath. It'll be great. It does 12d10 lightning damage. Nice chunk of damage. Recharges on the 5 and 6 and stuff, and then he can do really cool stuff then, like swallow, and he can constrict and swallow people and do, like, I was like, I'll if it happens, I'll grapple one of the more dexy ones, and then I'll have him swallow one of the more dexy ones, because they'll have a little bit more trouble breaking out of the belly. And I was like lining up all my moves, like 5-head 4D chess, game master kind of stuff. And then my sorcerer's turn came around, and she goes, he has disadvantage on dexterity saves, yeah? And I was like, yeah, that's correct. And she was like, okay, I'm going to cast... she has a homebrew spell called Morrigan's Galvanic Manacles that shoots out these, like, 60-foot chains to up to 3 targets within range. They take a bunch of lightning damage, and if they fail the save, they're stunned till the start of her next turn. Really cool spell, really fun, and it ruined him. Even though he's immune to lightning damage, it ruined him, because he's not immune to stun, and he still failed the save. So... he's now pinned by a bunch of rocks and can't take actions or reactions. So no action, no bonus action, no reaction. He can't do anything. And in the time intervening between when the druid cast that spell and the sorcerer cast that spell, I had an NPC fighter controlled by the sorcerer, who is an 11th level fighter with a rune knight with a great axe. He action surged. Then I had my pirate rogue, who came in with his brand new rifle, the Broken Bell, and sneak attacked him with the rifle and a sharpshooter shot. And then my Lycan Bloodhunter came in, didn't wolfed out, and then immediately went after him with his 2 swords, one of which is a Vestige. And he really took a lot of damage that round. The only thing that saved him the following round from being insta-KO'd in the first 2 turns was that Mandroy cast Blight on him at 5th level. Blight doesn't work on constructs.
I was just gonna say, yeah. So it would have done no damage.
Yeah, it did no damage. Well, I forgot that initially and went, oh crap, he's dead next turn. And then Mike went, oh no! What? How loud? No, I can't say. He was like, F, and then like stood up and like went, I'm so effing stupid. And then like freaked out. He was like, he literally listed off in the spell where the thing that told him it did no damage was by paragraph and line, and he went, it's the effing gate all over again.
Well, I was only telling him, I was only recalling that tale to him earlier in the week. Yeah. One of some of my favorite moments in campaign 1, where Mike, for anyone who hasn't, we've talked about it a few times. Yeah. For anyone who hasn't heard, I'll give you the abridged version. The guys were fighting at the big bad in our campaign 1 called the Clockwork Man. They were like level, I want to say like 18 now. They were very, very high level at this point. 18, I think. Mike
I think 17, because I remember you gave us like 3. We we were like, oh, we'll do time skipping here. You know, you level to 20, just say level to 20. Because
I think he jumped 2 levels at the end. Oh, you were on 18, and I just jumped you up to 20.
That makes sense, actually. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But when you were like maybe like 17 or 18, Mike had just gotten access to 8th level spells. Or was it 8th? I think Gate's an 8th level spell.
It is, yeah.
And he's like, can I use this spell? And he read the whole thing out to me, and I'm like, what I said to him was, I have no problem with it, and I read it. But he obviously skipped over this in his head, or whatever, and I didn't realize until maybe later in the week when I was reading over it myself, because I'm like, okay, I need to know what's going to happen when he casts this so I can prepare the session. And basically, he's like, when they cast Gate, I'm going to summon the Clockwork Man to us. We're going to be there with all of our friends, and we're just going to wail on him and kill him. And honestly, in another circumstance, pretty sound plan. Just summon the bad guy to you, and then everyone just kick his ass. But what happened was, I had already explained this, because a Modron named Hubert, who you guys had been friends with, had come back from Mechanus, where the Clockwork Man had made himself the new Primus. He basically knocked the Primus and killed him, and then assumed the role of Primus. There's a specific part in that spell that tells you that if the person or the thing that you're trying to summon is the ruler of the plane you're summoning them from, the spell fails. So the session started, and honestly, there was about a half hour or 40 minutes where you guys were like, we could summon him here to our fort. No, let's fly to some like open grassland area to the north. And I'm like, yeah, you do that. And cool, I'm going to have this person here and this person. I'm going to invite this person. And yeah, you invite them. They say, yeah, sure, we'll be there. You invite all your allies and everything. And there's about a half hour or 40 minutes to set up. And then when everyone's like, there's a tense moment, and everyone's kind of like, all right, let's do it. And Mike's like, okay, I cast Gate, and I target the Clockwork Man on Mechanus. And I say, okay. And I think I described that like there's a bit of energy or something and whatever, and then it's just like, ugh. And it kind of fails. And I just turn to Mike and I go, Mike, read the last paragraph of that spell there. And he quickly reads it and he goes, no!
Yeah.
That was one of my crueler DM moments where I let the session play out for a half hour and knowing it was going to fail.
Yeah, when he read the thing in Blight again, because I was like, read that again there, because Blight. I literally said like when he was casting, I was like, are you sure that works? Because there are certain spells that won't work on constructs. And he was like, yeah, it definitely works. And I was like, it felt wrong, but I didn't want to. I was just trying to get through the combat, so I didn't question it too much. But then he read it. He read it again on his laptop, and the whole reaction. He literally shut his laptop, walked over to another part of the room, sat down in a different chair away from everybody, and was like, "Oh, that's me for the turn then." He was totally fine after it. It was just so mad at himself. It was great.
That's so funny.
But it was. Sorry. Please.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted one more thing I wanted to say about your stories. You mentioned that the Morgan's Galvanic Manacles is a lightning damage spell. If I'm being perfectly honest, I would have said that the stun wouldn't have gone through. If you do like if the damage causes the stun, I would have personally ruled that if you do no damage, there can't really be a follow up stun. It's like if something is
But
like
it's the way I phrased it is it does this damage and the creature is stunned. I at the time,
yeah.
I was tempted to go, oh, the spell doesn't affect him because he's immune to lightning damage, so the lightning causes the stun because it's like a taser, and yeah, I may do that I may rule that differently another time. But at the time it felt.
That's the thing about 5e. It's rulings, not rules.
Yeah.
So in that moment you ruled it a certain way, which is fine. I just think, particularly because he was already on the ropes after one turn, I would have given him any opportunity just to do something in the fight.
I'll put it this way: that's probably the least threatening thing I've planned for them in the next 5 sessions.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, and they, to be fair to them now as well, they didn't rest, so I had already put them through a fight with 4 mimics and a fight with 8 Helm Towers.
8 Helm Towers.
Yeah. Oh, they wrecked them.
Yeah, it's honestly, what level are your players at?
12,
13?
yeah, 12, yeah.
12. So you guys just turned level 12 after this session.
Yes. Oh my god, I'm so happy.
And honestly, I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'm remembering last campaign and remembering why towards the end of campaign 1 I was so desperate to get started on the new campaign. Part of it was because I was really excited about my new world and all that kind of stuff and new characters. You see your players playing the same characters for a long time. It's nice to see them, like, what they come up with next and where things are going after that, and you get a bit eager. But I think a lot of the reason that I was doing it, I was so eager, is because it was getting really, really hard to plan combat encounters for you guys. And also, like, in first campaign, you guys had like.
We had so many magic casters. We had so many. The majority of actually everyone but one person in our party was a caster, and by the end of the game, they were a caster.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he had some cleric spells by the end. But like everything, not even that. It's like you had like, first of all, you were crazy powerful because by the time you were finishing up the campaign, you had gotten each of you had gotten like these god weapons, one of these god magic items each, and you'd also done a thing where like you went to hell, and I thought this before. I rolled on a chart, which I'm never doing again, for magic items that were appropriate to your level. For our audio listeners, I'm doing quotation marks. Appropriate to your level, and I rolled a +3 shield for you, and I'm like, well, I rolled it, so I gotta stick with it. And then it was like, I cannot give this to Martin's character and not give everyone else something of equal. Like equally good. So then I actually spent what would have been me planning out the session and being like, okay, I'll roll up some magic items and we'll see what happens, and then I'll just add them in, and then I'll do a whole bunch of other work. Turned into, over the course of 2 hours, turned into me just spending about 2 hours drawing up like 4 or 5 really high level magic items that I'm like, this is the only fair way I can give this, because I feel like if I rolled it, I have to. I said to myself, I'm going to roll it, and whatever happens, happens. I felt like I had to commit to that. And then I'm like, but if I commit to that, I have to commit to giving them all this other stuff. So you got a +5 tower shield.
Yes.
That was absolutely insane.
23 AC base.
Yeah. Oh, it was so. And then you'd have like Shield of Fate on top of that for 25.
Yeah.
It got ridiculous. And then what did I gave the bow of the Frozen Avenger or something like that to Aerith, to Enna.
Yeah, jeez. Jeez, when you said that name was pulled from way back in the directory in my head. Holy crap.
Which was basically a bow that lets you didn't need arrows, it would just summon its own ice arrows, and it could choose to do ice damage instead of piercing damage, which, again, like, for anything that's resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing or anything like that, it's like, no, just cold instead. I'm like, oh wow, this is, like, she would fire these things and do like 10d6 cold damage to a creature, as if she's casting a cone of cold on repeat every turn, which is absolutely insane. 2
attacks a turn as well, so it was, because a sneak attack only procs on the first one, obviously. So, but like that first one is like 10. Yeah, it was like 10d6 between the bow and her sneak, and then there'd be another attack, and that'd be like another 4d6. So it was like 14d6 cold damage each turn.
Oh man. It was, and then like, oh man, I'm never allowing 2 rogues in the party ever again.
Oh man.
It's so much. I'm just, Dan was doing so much damage regularly with Drunan just by throwing daggers. But he bought this little box of small D6s that was for like not for D&D, it was for something else. But it was a box that contained like 3 by 3 by 3 D6s, and whenever it was his turn, he'd just tip it out into his hand and just throw them all. And I'm like,
if I remember right, it was like a giant dice that was a giant
it
die
looked
that
like
was
a
a
dice
box
that would open.
that
Yeah,
was just
I know
filled
that.
with D6s. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
by end of game, then he was using like 75% of those just for sneak attack.
Yeah.
Oh
And then
man.
like God help me if he crit, because like that's whatever many D6s doubled. Oh, it got absolutely insane. So
Did,
like I had that bow for Enna, and I think that had the properties of an oath bow, I think, as well.
it did, yeah, it did.
So I gave her that. I gave Dan a set of, I want to say +1, studded leather armor that was
Yeah.
like a snake armor, and it also made him immune to poison damage, and I
Yeah.
think it gave him a swim speed as
It
well.
did, it did. You're right there, yeah.
And I think it had a couple of other ribbon abilities, like I think he could speak Abyssal while he had it on, or something like that as well. And then Mike, I gave him a pair of dwarven gauntlets that were like caster's gloves, so you can channel your energy through them, like
A focus.
focus, yeah. And they were like +2 to spell attacks and saving throws. Tip to all you DMs out there: if you want to give you a caster a +1 more wand or whatever that like gives them a plus to their attack rolls, absolutely do. Never give them anything that gives them a plus on their saving throw DC, because oh my god, it's so broken.
And I will just say thank you very much for saying that to me. Every time I've showed you a caster like artifact item that I was working on, and you were like, you might want to remove this because they're already doing that to like CR11 creatures.
And the thing is, like, typically if you roll an attack roll with any spell, and like honestly, most spells that do attack rolls are like less than level 5. Maybe even less than 3. Like most spells with attack rolls are really low level. All the really powerful stuff is spell saves. And like if you're like, I think Mike had a really high charisma by the end. I think he actually had the stone, which I think gave him a +2.
Yeah, I think he had like 22 charisma, or it was
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least 20 by the end.
It was at least 20, so like, you're talking about a +11 on top of 8. You're talking about at least a 19, and then he had these gloves, which made it a 21 spell save, which was like so few things I had could make that, unless I gave my baddies ridiculous stats. But he got those, and I think they did something else as well, but I can't remember what. It's been a while. Was Tara on that adventure with you into Hell?
No, I don't believe so. She came back in the middle of the fight with Kefalax, and the adventure to Hell was prior to us going to the Dragonborn Enclave, because by the time we were there, I had my red dragon plate armor, and I only got that because we went to Hell and killed the Marlith for Amikir.
Yes. Okay.
By the way,
I'm trying to get the timeline
that
right,
was
man.
like 4 years ago that I.
Yeah, look, you remembered more than I did. I would not have been able to pull all that information. That's kind of interesting, though, isn't it? How like if you're it's kind of like what's it? If you're a fan of something, you tend to know it better than the people who wrote it themselves.
Oh,
like you could go up to like, I don't know, someone like Peter Jackson and be like, "Oh, Peter, I love the Lord of the Rings movies. You know that bit where this thing happens and there's this guy in the background doing this," and he'd be like, "I guess I didn't ask him to do that. I don't remember ever. I didn't actively do that, but I'm glad you enjoyed it."
A wizard did it.
Like I was watching a thing not long ago with Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight in The Office, American Office, and Billie Eilish, and she's like an Office super fan. And they were sitting down, and she was quoting episodes to him and stuff he said in episodes. And she's like, "Yeah, remember this thing happens, and you're standing here, and this character says this to you, and then you say that, and then the other person says this in reaction or whatever." And he's like, "Nope." I'm glad you remember, but I have no recollection of that. That was like season 2, and she's like, "Yeah, it was season 2, episode 4." And like she's that crazy about The Office, and he was just like, like he was stoked about it, but at the same time, he was just like, "Nope." That was just, I probably did like 8 takes that day. You know, like there's a panel. I can't remember at what event or whatever, but there was a panel at an event with all the community cast members, and there was a joke where like in one episode where they were doing it a bit, Donald Glover makes a joke, but he was kind of riffing on them most times, and each new time he would get a different one. And he made a joke, and then he went like what or something like that. Oh no, he went yay yay like that. And then when they mentioned it on stage, someone in the audience went yay yay like that, and she's like, no, that's not what we say though, because on the day the one that made us laugh the most is he went what like that. So they, like, the cast members know it differently, because the take they remember doing and thinking that's the one is the one where he went what, not yay yay.
Yeah.
That's a really weird thing, but it is interesting that the people making things have a way different perception than the people who are absorbing it and consuming it.
Oh yeah, totally. But you brought up some interesting points about evolving weapons, and that's actually kind of the theme of what we're talking about today. Because today we're going to talk about first and foremost, as an addendum to our Fizzbands video from last week, which is really fun. You should definitely go watch it if you haven't. We're going to talk about, because we mentioned it at the start of that episode, because I went back and watched it. We go, yeah, we'll get into Hoard magic items and the bestiary, and you literally say, yeah, we'll probably spend the most time on the bestiary, and then we get to the bestiary in the last 5 minutes of the show.
I think it's the last 10 minutes or something like that, and we go quickly, what are your 5 favorite monsters?
Yeah, and we spent so much time just geeking out about how cool the 2 subclasses were. Entirely missed it. So today is going to be a bit of an addendum to our Fizzbands video. We're going to firstly talk about I believe it's 4 different. You get 4 different kinds of Hoard magic items in Fizzbands. I believe it's either 4 or 5.
There's 4 levels to them. Yeah.
No, sorry. I mean, there's 4 different kinds.
Oh, sorry. Yes, there are 4. Yes, there's the weapon, the focused, the vessel, and the ornament. Yeah.
Yes, and they're all very cool and very interesting, and we will definitely get into them.
In my defense, Martin, I did say that we'd get to Hoard weapons, and we did just 7 days later.
We did 7 days later. Yeah. But yeah, we're going to talk about Hoard weapons, and then we're actually going to go through those and talk about what we like and what we don't like about them, and then we're going to have a bit of a chat as well about vestige weapons, or Vestiges of Divergence, which feature in Matt Mercer's Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. That is official for D&D, and are things that feature in both mine and Conor's campaigns. So we kind of go through that, and just because they follow a very similar path to the Hoard weapons in terms of a weapon that grows with a character and how they advance and stuff like that. They're really cool. They're really, really cool, and there's really dope art for lots of them.
I'm a big fan of magic items that can scale with your character. Just because I feel like there's that whole thing where, imagine if Link gets the Master Sword in the first 5 hours of play on a 60-hour game, and then he gets the Master Sword, and you're like, cool, I have the Master Sword, that's Link's sword. And then you skip ahead 30 hours, and it's like, here's this other sword that's not the Master Sword, but it's better. And you're like, oh, but Link uses the Master Sword, so I kind of want to use the Master Sword, but it's not as mechanically beneficial for me to use the Master Sword. I kind of feel like if a character comes up and goes, this is my family sword, it was made by my grandfather, my great grandfather, however many generations ago, and it's crafted from a meteor that fell from the sky, and blah blah. And if you get that, or if you start at level 1 with that, I think it's nice that could grow with you, because it'd be weird if Aragorn was like, what's it, Andoriel, the Flame of the West, and then he's like, ooh, here's a nicer sword though, I'll pull this out when I need ghosts to do things for me, but when I'm fighting I'll use this one.
Yeah, interesting point though, that actually in the books he does start out with Andoriel from
he does when he leaves Rivendell.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's super dope and awesome.
When that reveal though, when Elrond in the movie, when Elrond is just like, they will answer to the King of Gondor, and he just pulls it out.
So good, so goddamn good.
Sauron will not have forgotten the sword that cut the ring from his hand.
Oh, I love it so much. I love that scene so good, and that sword is so ridiculously long. It looks like it looks like it's so ridiculously long the way they film it, because they run the camera all the way up from the hilt, all the way to the tip,
the whole way up. Yeah,
and it's a big.
That is a true long sword.
It's a big sword, and I do actually have one.
If you look at the hilt, it is designed for 2-handed hold as well.
Yeah, I think it's a hand and a half sword technically, but there's loads of technicalities you can get into about where it's a one-handed sword, a hand and a half sword, or a bastard sword, and it's they all kind of mean the same thing and kind of don't.
like long swords, as far as fantasy is concerned, are probably more similar to like arming swords, which were like one-handed swords you'd wield with a shield. And then the great swords that we talk about in fantasy don't actually exist in real life. They're just long swords
Yeah.
because they're the longest sword.
Funniest fun fact: the heaviest greatsword ever historically used weighed 6 kilograms.
Yeah, which is not like that's not exactly what's his face. Orin, is it Orin from Final Fantasy X, where he's got the huge sword over his shoulder. A better one would have
Why
been
did you?
Cloud
I
Strike.
was going to say, why did you go for him and not fucking Cloud?
You know what? Tara's a really really big fan of 10, and I've seen her play 10 a
Yeah.
bunch. So when I think of someone with a big sword, I think of that guy. I'm pretty sure his name's Orin. He has one. He's one of those guys in the anime who purposely doesn't use one of his hands. It's kind of like in a sling,
Oh
and he
right.
uses one hand to swing this enormous sword. And I think he can enter a special
Oh,
mode where he'll just
Oran.
take his
Sorry.
hand.
Yes,
Oran,
Oran.
sorry,
Yes,
yes.
sorry. I totally know who you're on about now. Yeah, yeah,
And he'll just take his hand. If he enters this mode, he'll like, now I'm going to take both hands out and swing, and that means you're in trouble.
yeah. yeah, yeah. No, it was interesting when like I think it's because like you know you were like if you start with for evolving weapons you start with the master sword and like oh this other sword comes it's like got better stats but like Link uses the master sword.
Yeah.
Devil May Cry does a really interesting thing with that in the first one, because you start off with a sword called Force Edge, and it's just kind of a fancier looking kind of long sword. It's got like a skull pommel and stuff. It just looks cool, and like it doesn't have any special power. It's just a big sword, and it's the first thing you do. And then you go through the game and you get different weapons. So like you get like a lightning greatsword that when you use your demonic powers gives you wings and you can fly and shoot lightning bolts. You get like these fiery gauntlets that let you like launch. You literally turn into like you literally turn into like Ryu from Street Fighter, and you get like with flaming gauntlets, and you start like punching and
Yeah.
kicking things, and you can make explosions, and you can do like charge hits. But then when you basically get to right before you start going after the big bad of the game, you defeat your twin brother in combat, and you get an amulet that he has that basically they're twins, and when they were young, their mother both gave them half of an amulet that their father gave them, and like splits in two and gives them. So when he defeats him, you get the amulet, and that amulet combines with your one and makes something called the perfect amulet, and then that combines with the Force Edge, and reveals
Okay.
that all along the Force Edge, which you've always just known as it's your Dante's father Sparda's sword, that like
Right.
it just looks like a normal long sword. When that combines with the perfect amulet, that turns into the sword Sparda, which is the legendary sword used to defeat the king of the underworld and seal away the demons.
Right.
And it's this huge. It looks sort of like Soul Edge, from the Soul Calibur games. You know the sword with the massive eye in it.
I think so. I'll look it up.
Like
But
literally look up Sparda, Sparda, and it's like this giant like two-hander, and like it can change forms and like changes into like a lance and a scissors and a scythe and like all this crazy crap. But like I loved how they did that, where like it was a cool sword, and then you
oh
get
wow, yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. Particularly if you look up the PS4, like the Devil May Cry 5 version of Sparta, it looks really dope. But like I just loved how they did that, where like you start off with the sword, and then you go, okay, I get all these other weapons all along, and they have different benefits and different things, and I might like them a little more, and particularly as they do more damage, I would like them more than the first thing I start off with. But then at the end, when he completes his story arc, you realize that you realize like, oh, the most powerful weapon in the goddamn game, I've had it all along. I just needed a piece. I just needed to complete it.
Yeah.
Like I loved how that was done, and particularly now as I look back at, like I was just like, oh, it's so cool, it's your dad's sword, and I was playing it when I was young. But now when I look back at it with like better knowledge of like storytelling and particularly like DMing and stuff, I really like how that arc goes. Where yeah, he stops using his dad's sword because he finds some stronger weapons out there from things he's defeated. But then like at the end when he completes his story arc and like realizes his like he finds his brother, defeats him, this whole thing, and like that brother encounter he shows up 3 times throughout the game, and he's one of the most difficult fights in the game because it's like fighting you, and it's not until the third fight where you find out it's the brother. So it's like this whole thing where it's built up. Then you realize, oh, it's the brother. You complete the story arc. He defeats him because he has to, because he's evil now. And then like you defeat him, you unlock your true power, and now you go to fulfill your destiny that was set on before you when your father defeated this demon that's now coming back. And I was like, that's dope. And these things like reek of that kind of fuel. Like I love it.
Yeah.
Like you could like if you've like someone who comes to you and is like, oh, a dragon destroyed the city that I lived in when I was a child, and I was one of the few survivors who got out there. My parents saved me or whatever, and the only thing they found me in the rubble later, clutching this sword, and like you can just start it off, and like, oh yeah, maybe this is like. There's another thing as well like that. I think it's a supplement. I think it's on DM's Guild. It's called Sword of the Ancestor, and it's a similar thing where like. It's a very, very similar thing to what you were talking about with the Joe. This is like my family sword. It's got these runes engraved on it. It's a thing where like you start off and it's just like a regular sword. Then it becomes like a +1. Then it becomes like a +1 with a charge. Does the +1 with this and this and this, and you get immune.
Yeah.
And like very similar. But I suppose we should probably actually get into the Hoard weapons. Do you want to take the Dragon's Wrath weapon, or will I?
Sure. I'll hop in, if you don't mind.
Not about.
So the first one we have here is the Dragon's Wrath weapon. So it can be any weapon of a variety of rarities, depending on what level it's at. So with Hoard items, the cool thing about them is that they have not just increasing, but also decreasing power. For different reasons, your sword might become more or less powerful throughout the campaign, which I think is kind of cool. There's 4 levels. They can be a slumbering item, a stirring item, awakening item, or an ascendant item. And you'll find these different levels in the different hordes of various rarity dragons, whether they're adult or ancient or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, for this one, so to kind of just go over the increasing power thing here, they talk about a few different ways that you can increase the power. One is like soaking, essentially like bathing your sword or your weapon or your item in a dragon's hoard. So we in not just in this book, but in the monster manual as well, and you can be seen from like the regional effects that dragons have. Dragons kind of radiate elemental and magical energy that warps and twists the landscape, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse around them. But that energy is obviously most concentrated in the hoard, in the cave or the dwelling that they sleep in and that they call their kind of house or whatever, where they keep all their gold and all their, like, for Smaug it would be the central chambers of Erebor, essentially,
Yes. Where I'm currently hiding under a pile of gold, pissing myself.
Exactly, yeah. Barrel Rider.
Fucking Bowl Rider is more like
it. He should have been just snapped up instantly. So one way is that you can basically, the word they use is steep. I like the word soak, though. Without actually,
they're synonyms, like
to be actually somewhat complimentary for a change to Zack Snyder. There's one line I really love from Man of Steel where his father talks about how his cells will drink the yellow radiation of Earth's sun, and I love that line. It's so evocative, like it's so good. Thinking about his cells just swallowing up all this yellow radiation, and that empowers him. Anyway, sorry, side note, but I love that line. I love the idea of a sword soaking up like a sponge, just soaking up all the power that a dragon emits. And with each year that it spends in it, it can gain 1 level and become more and more powerful. So depending on, and obviously that kind of caps at the power of the creature, but you could kill an ancient dragon and pull like this. Is it legendary level? I think they're at.
At ancients.
It's legendary, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can pull this legendary weapon, out of the hoard, and the thing is though, and here's the catch-22. They can also lose power as well.
Yes.
So too can these treasures fall back into slumber. If no creature is attuned to the hoard item, and that item isn't in a dragon's hoard, the item decreases in power by 1 state for every 30 days until it is back in a slumbering state.
Like that's gone to slumbering like that,
like compared to like 4 or 5 years or whatever to get it up to full, and then it takes just 90 days to get right back down to what it was.
It doesn't make sense though, because it's a lot it's not an exact analogy, but it's a lot easier to destroy something than it is to create something.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to build up that energy and charge it up. Whereas like you can very quickly and again, I like that if you're attuned to it, it stays powerful.
Yeah.
If someone's, and that makes sense. If someone's wielding it, I guess the power is constantly.
It's being used. It's like
stoking a fire.
Yeah, or totally. Yeah, like just stoking up the fire.
Yeah.
It's like it's constantly in use. The magic is constantly being replenished and tested against other things, and like, geez,
yeah.
I love the idea of using one of these against a dragon. It just seems so cool. Just like it's so fantasy trope, and I love it. I love that it's so classic fantasy. You know, like.
And there's also a bit here where if the dragon is slain, the magic surrounding Tor becomes volatile. This allows a horde to steep more quickly, or an item to steal more quickly in a horde. A horde item steeped in a dragon sword for 8 hours rises from slumbering to stirring, starting to wake, blah blah blah. As long as the steeping begins within 1 hour of the dragon's death. So that's kind of like reminds me of like a bit of a Dark Souls type vibe. You finish the boss fight, you go to your bonfire, you rest, but the sword is in it.
Yeah.
So you could literally jam your sword into a pile of gold and kind of meditate over it and give it a full hour just to soak, or full 8 hours to soak up all that draconic energy.
That's what I was thinking. I was very much thinking of it like almost like keeping vigil. Like you've slain the beast, and now you just like stab the sword into the ground or into the horde or whatever, and you like kneel by it for the night until the sun rises, and then you pull it out, and suddenly you have a much more powerful sword. Like it's so classic literature as well. I love it. Like.
It's really cool. So the Dragon's Wrath weapon.
Yes.
So this starts off as in its slumbering state, which is rarity uncommon. Whenever you roll a 20 on your attack roll, each creature of your choice within 5 feet takes 5 damage of the type dealt by the Dragon's Breath weapon. So obviously you can do the different types. What's cool about this is they don't specify very rigidly that it is cold, fire, poison, acid, lightning. That means you can include the new gem draconic types and stuff like that as well. So this could really be any damage type, which is really cool.
Force, psychic, necrotic, I believe.
And thunder.
Yes.
I think gems or emeralds, I think, are thunder. So that's really cool. At the stirring state, which is rare, the stirring weapon it has the same properties as before, but in addition, it's a +1 weapon. And on a hit, the weapon deals an extra d6 of the damage type. So right away, you have like either an extra d6 of fire damage or something like that, and then you're also on your 20 roll, it's just a puff of flame appears around you and burns everyone nearby. For the wakened state, which is very rare, same properties as before. Now it's a +2 instead of a +1, and it gets 2d6 extra damage per hit, which is as much as a greatsword, on every single hit instead of the +1. Also, as an action, you can unleash a 30-foot cone of destructive energy. Each creature in the area must make a DC 16 saving throw or take 8d6 of the damage type dealt. 30-foot cone and 8d6 is pretty serious as far as that goes.
I was going to say that may be one of my favorite like standard abilities of like an in-book magic item that they have.
Yeah.
Because that's just so cool.
Each creature in the area. So you make the save. You can't use this again until the next dawn. But I mean, that's a really nice once a day blast of energy. And finally, the Ascended state, which is legendary. The Ascended weapon has all the properties as before. It's now a +3. It does 3d6 damage, and the cone of energy is now 60 foot, which is huge. The DC goes from 16 to 18, and it does 12d6 damage.
Oh, dude, that's so like. I love this. I love how it evolves. I love the breakdown of the power in it. I think it scales very, very well. I think it's always going to feel powerful. Like, that's what I like about this. There's never going to be a point where you're like, oh, my Dragon Wrath weapon feels a lot more like a Dragon Wrath butter knife right now. Like, you know, there's never going to be a point where you're like,
Did you think it was powerful when I used it against you this week?
That's what that was?
Yeah.
Oh my god. No wonder it did so much. And that's why you could only do it once. Son of a...
He opened up the fight with that. And to be fair, most of you succeeded. Most of you got higher than 18, which is very good.
Yeah, but we still took 35 damage.
Yeah. So this is Martin finding out for the first time, by the way, folks. I had not told them. They didn't figure it out in the session either. The Grand Inquisitor, Lukasz Devalkios, the guy the big bad that you fought, one of the big bads, but the big bad for that fight at least, in this week's game, you guys fought him. And you know, it was hairy. It got very hairy for a while there.
Oh yeah, 10 HP.
But he was using this weapon, and it was at a legendary state. It was a +3. He was doing an extra 3d6 force damage on every hit, and he did that 60-foot cone thing. Because when the fight started, you were all here, him and his people were here, and he just opened up with a bang and hit all of you with that cone. Like I said, luckily, one of you wasn't there. One of you was below deck.
Yeah.
And then the other two were barbarians. And then I think Arkham managed to. Arkham just rolled high. He
Yeah.
doesn't have great decks, but he rolled high. So he got
He's
an
got
18.
a lot of health for a warlock as well. To be fair to him, he's got like 90 something health.
Well, yeah, he does because now he spent time searching for a magic item on his downtime, like asking what the
Oh, yeah.
investigation checks and stuff you make, and he got an amulet of is it amulet of health?
Periaptive health.
Yeah, the one that gives you 18 or 19 con
Yes.
fixed.
Yeah.
So his health jumped up considerably because he only had like 14 before that or something like that.
Yeah, he
so
was
his health
paper.
jumped up considerably because it also backfills him for all the levels he's had. So he got like an extra 20 odd health or something like that.
It's
which is
like
good.
it's like an equipable tough.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Yeah. This magic item is seriously cool.
God damn.
Yeah, literally, and the thing is, like, the book came out. Like, we took a couple of weeks off before that session, just because schedules weren't lining up. The typical plight of any D&D group. But yeah, we took some time off, and in that time, I had been planning the session, and I actually wrote him in with a different legendary sword from the book. It was another one from the book, and I wrote it in. And I was
Can I
gonna put
guess?
that one? Go on.
Holy Avenger?
No.
Ah, okay. I would have given him a Holy Avenger because he feels like the type.
Yeah, no. It was a defender.
Ah, okay. That would have been a bastard.
Yeah. Which is also a +3 sword, but it also gives him the ability to like defend and shield himself as well. So yeah, I gave him that, and even on the stat block, it still said defender when we played the session. But that's because the book came out on Thursday and we played on Tuesday. And over the weekend, I didn't get a chance to change his stat block. So before the session started, I quickly scribbled. I think after I read this, I went, "Yeah, I'm giving him that instead."
Oh man, yeah. Fuck, jeez, that hurts so bad. I'm like less. I'm like actively less fond of it now, Connor. What have you done?
So what you're saying is you did think it was very powerful when I used it against you.
Yeah, particularly when he hits you 3 times. You take this amount of slashing damage, halved to this, and I was like, cool. And you take 29 points of force damage. That's what that round of attacks is what got me to 10 health.
Yeah, I think because what happened was it kicked off. He used that, and on the next round, you had run in to close the gap, and I think your dog Frost had engaged with the guy on his right, on your right. Wabu had engaged the guy on the left, and you went right down the middle and engaged Valkyos, and he was like, okay, so we're kind of pairing off in ones here. He's just going to go 1, 2, 3, smack on you. And did some pretty heavy damage.
Yeah.
We also crit Mike a lot last week.
Yeah, oh god, poor Mike.
I crit him like 3 times.
Yeah, you crit Mike more in that session than you've crit me in like the last 3 months.
and you're the guy with the adamantine armor, which can take it, like.
Yeah, literally since I've gotten the adamantine armor, I think I've been crit maybe twice.
I honestly, I don't know what it is. I crit Mike an awful lot, and we have special homebrew rules that we do for like major and minor injuries and stuff like that. And like honestly, even when you were in the Underdark, I remember there was a long period where Mike had like a head injury and his right
legs.
arm was banjaxed and stuff, and his legs.
Yeah, you got me. You got my legs a few times, but that was also before the adamantine armor.
Yeah, exactly. You're just immune to crits now because of that.
Immune to crits, resistance to cold, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, and now thanks to leveling up, resistant to poison.
Oh, because you changed out your runes, one of your rune knight.
Hill rune, baby.
Yeah. Gotta gather up all those resistances. Gotta catch them all.
I've needed them.
But do you want to move on to the dragon touched focus now?
Yeah, I'll grab the focus. Yeah, so Dragon Touch focused, wondrous item, same as the other one. Rarity varies. Requires attunement specifically by a spellcaster, so it can be a scepter or a amulet, basically any kind of spellcasting focus you want it to be. But normally it incorporates like imagery of dragons, wings, teeth, and claws, something like that. For the slumbering stage, which is uncommon, you have advantage on initiative rolls, and while you're holding the focus, it can function as a spellcasting focus for all your spells. So not like super great, but still for spellcasters, advantage on initiative is really nice.
I mean, for anyone, advantage on initiative is great. I mean, it definitely for spellcasters in particular because they don't need to have good decks.
Yes.
A lot of spellcasting classes, like I know War Wizards have it, and I think a couple others have it, where you can add your initiative or your proficiency I know War Wizards definitely have it, which is really appealing. You can add your int to your initiative, which if you have high int is like really beneficial.
Hell yeah.
Just because it's like, yeah, you can. It's always nice when you can stat out one thing and it benefits you in a ton of ways. I mean, Dex is that for most classes because Dex is kind of the god stat in 5e.
Strength and 6e, please.
But yeah, I like that. I mean, that's perfectly on par for an uncommon magic item as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. They normally only have like one beneficial, kind of minorly beneficial thing, like
Yeah, exactly.
Then after that's been in a Hoard for a while, it can level up to Stirring, which is at the Stirring. It has the Stirring focus has the Slumbering property, and it gains an additional property determined by the family of dragon in whose Hoard it becomes Stirring. And this is where I really, really like the focus, because the other ones just go, damage type, whatever. This is like, depending on what dragon it is, you can get either different spells or different functions and effects. It's really cool. So with Chromatic, whenever you use a spell slot to cast a spell that deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison, you can roll a d6 and gain a bonus equal to the number rolled to one of the spell's damage rolls, which is pretty cool. It's basically what the Draconic Lineage Sorcerer can do with their elemental choice.
Yeah, true. And like that's the thing, like it doesn't seem like a lot of d6. Keep in mind that's still at the rare level, so it's not terribly powerful. But also that's every single turn. Like as long as you're and that can be cantrips as well. So as long as you're blasting cantrips, think about it. If you have that at we'll just say like 8th level, for example, which I think is an appropriate level to have a rare item. Doing an extra d6 on any of your cantrips that do that means you're essentially casting it as if you were an 11th level caster. That cantrip gets the extra damage dice on top of it.
Yeah, totally. Then with the Gem Dragon, when you use a spell class a spell, you can immediately teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 15 feet. So like super good to be like an evasive, like blinking around the place kind of caster.
I love anything that lets you teleport short distances, because like being tactical and bouncing around like that is really, really good. Also, I misspoke a second ago. The chromatic ability is also when you use a spell slot to cast a spell, so it does not work with cantrips.
Oh yeah, sorry, because cantrips aren't. Yeah, you don't use a spell slot.
They are spells, but you don't burn a spell slot. So yeah.
And then for the metallic dragons, when a creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes a saving throw, you can use a reaction to give it advantage on the throw, on the saving throw, which is pretty dope. Really good support ability. So I can use something.
That's like just a reaction, so you can do it as many times as you want, and that can also be you as well.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like I've something very, very similar with the Storm Rune on Lug, and it's come in clutch a few times. It's been very, very good. We've then got the Wakened stage, where the Wakened focus has the Slumbering and Stirring properties, and while you're holding a Wakened focus, you can use it to cast certain spells. Once the item is used to cast a given spell, it can't be used to cast it again until dawn, and then the spells are determined by the family of dragon that the Hoard item comes from.
Interesting thing that this one doesn't do. Sorry to cut across you. Interesting thing that this one does not do is that it says while you're holding. So if you can cast a spell, once you use the item to cast a given spell, it can't be used to cast that spell again until dawn. I don't think you'd learn it then. I don't think you necessarily, because a lot of things you see now will tell you, or if you have a spell slot, you can cast this spell again. Just not, you don't get this. You get this one free use or whatever. Some of the Draconic feats will say you can do this, or some of the classes will say you can do this one thing once a day, or if you have key points or spell slots or whatever, you can burn them to do it additional times. This doesn't seem to allow that, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I do actually quite like the spells, because you get a few newer ones in here. For chromatic dragons, you get Hold Monster, which is always a good spell. And then a new spell, which is Rhyme's Binding Ice, which came in with Fizzbands. For those who don't know, it's a 2nd level spell. Casting time with an action, range of 30-foot cone. It's a burst of cold energy, emanates from you in a 30-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a Constitution save. On a failed save, they take 3d8 cold damage and are hindered by ice formations for 1 minute, or until another creature within reach uses an action to break away the ice. A creature hindered in this way has its speed reduced to 0, and they take on a successful save half damage, and they aren't hindered. That's a really cool spell.
That's a great spell. That's the same spell that Arnie used in when he played Dr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. When he kicked in the door and he's like, "What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age," and all those guys were just frozen solid on the spot. That's that spell right there.
Yeah, if you ever wanted to play Mr. Freeze,
that's the perfect spell.
That's the one. Moving quickly on from Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie, regardless how much I adore him.
And that movie.
Oh god. Gem Dragons, you get Rarity's Telepathic Bond and Rotham's Psychic Lance, which is also another new spell. That one is you unleash a shimmering lance of psychic power from your forehead at a creature you can see within range. Alternatively, you can. This is really cool. I remember this now. I remember this spell. Alternatively, you can utter a creature's name. If the named target is within range, it becomes the spell's target, even if you can't see it. If the named target isn't in range, the lance dissipates without effect. On a failed int save, the target takes 7d6 psychic damage and is incapacitated until the start of your next turn. On a successful save, half damage and isn't incapacitated. It's got a range of 120 feet.
That when it says it's from a forehead, I immediately think of Vision shooting the gem out of his forehead. But even then, like there's literally no other spell that lets you just speak the name of the creature. That can be tricky in terms of
auto hit, like it's literally an auto hit.
I'm just wondering, like, can you do that if, like, for example, you're fighting some Yeti? Well, Yetis, I think, technically have language. Let's just say, for example, you're fighting some wolves in the forest. A dire wolf wouldn't necessarily have a name. Can you just think that wolf there, or like, for example, you're fighting some bandits that jumped you. You have no idea who these guys are, but they're in range. Can you just think of that bandit? Because it says you can utter the creature's name. Do you specifically need to know the name, or would you rule it that you can just, as long as you can think of the person that you saw only moments ago, it'll target them?
For the way that's phrased, I would specifically say for that part you need the name, because it's still got 120 foot range. Otherwise, you can just launch it at someone. You don't need to, like, you know, that the name thing is a cool flavor, and just because I do like the naming magic stuff, I'd be like, no, like, also, like, if someone goes, like, that would be a sick thing for like an assassin to learn. Or something like that, or like, you know, like you send a spy in. You have to kill someone for like a mission. You send a spy in to like rifle through their house and find and like look through their documents and get their name, and then he returns with that and goes, "This is the guy." And then you like death note him with a mental lance. What the fuck? Like, come on, that's awesome.
Death noting it is exactly, because it's just a verbal thing. All you need to do is speak. So you don't even do any hand gestures. You could literally, you could be in a fight. Someone could flee, and you could just be like, "It's okay, guys. I've got this one, Martin." And then all you hear is someone around the corner 100 feet away just hit the dirt dead, you know?
It's very cool. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, you know, I would probably rule it that you do need to have the person, not their full name, but you need to know at least
first name.
One of their names. You can know their last name or their first name, as long as you have a name for them that is their proper name. That'd be really cool if they ever given you a false name and you spoke it and it has no effect. They must have given you a false name. That'd be really cool. But I mean, for a 4th level spell, even just to be able to target someone, an int save is not something that a lot of classes are good at. And then 76 psychic damage and incapacitated, because that just means you're
auto crits all day.
Auto crits all day, and like you're just out.
Yeah.
You're just, everything stops working. You basically skip your entire next turn. You can't speak. You can't move. You can't take an action. Nothing. So even without the ability to target someone out of your range, that's still a really, really good spell.
Yeah, it's
also I like Rarity's Telepathic Bond an awful lot. That to me is like, okay, like that's like, okay, everyone, radio's channel 2, you know, like we're syncing up before our mission here. It's like I like it because it's like, even if only one person has the ability to be telepathic, you can be like, cool, how many creatures is targeting?
8.
8 creatures. Yeah, so you just go, cool, the whole squad, everyone, we can all talk telepathically for now, and then we're all gonna head in, and we're basically got our radios synced up for the mission or the whatever we're doing, you know?
It's super dope. And then for the Metallic Dragon, we get Legend Lore and another new spell, Fizzban's Platinum Shield, which is a 6th level spell, lasts for a minute and has a range of 60 foot. You create a field of silvery light that surrounds a creature of your choice within range. You can choose yourself. The field sheds dim light out to 5 feet, and while surrounded by the field, the creature gains the following benefits. Cover, they have half cover. They have damage resistance, or resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, and poison. So all 5 chromatic dragon damage types.
Yeah.
They get evasion. So if they have to make a dexterity save to take half damage, they take no damage if they succeed, and auto take half damage. And then as a bonus action on subsequent turns, you can move the field to another creature within 60 feet.
That's really, really cool, and I love that you can move it. It doesn't make it very powerful that you can move it, but there's an error of flexibility there, because that's a 6th level slot. You don't get a lot of those.
Yeah.
So the fact it's also a bonus action to cast. Oh my god, that's really good. Wow. So yeah, you can.
Yeah, I would totally favor that as like you see like platinum spectral dragon wings flap out from you, and then just like
Yeah.
boom in front of you, like Bahamut herself is protecting you.
I'm gonna make a comparison you're gonna hate.
Go on.
Are you ready for this?
I'm preparing myself.
This is basically the power that Bella has in Twilight when she becomes a vampire. Is she can extend like a shield that makes other people immune to other powers. Because there's this one girl on the bad team, I can't remember her name, where she can target people and just make them. She can just make them into. How am I trying to say? She can just make them hurt real bad.
Yeah, she basically can cast Phantasmal Force.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're in excruciating pain, and all she has to do is look at them. But Bella has this cool blocking ability where she's like, "Oh, I can block that ability, so you can't do that." This kind of reminds me of that. Is like I can project a shield that will protect my allies. I really like how they're leaning into the idea of metallic dragons being the protectors and healers and stuff like that.
Can I ask you a favor?
Never mention Twilight again.
No, like for the next 8 levels, if I ever block anything as Lug, never compare it to that. Please. Please. I do not compare cool stuff like this to a character whose magic power is I'm so not a character I cancel out people's magic abilities.
And when you think about it, the fact that she's such a bland character with a lack of personality, the fact that she can negate other characters' personality traits.
She is a black hole of character and personality.
I'm so boring as a character. I can just suck everyone else's abilities away from them.
Oh god, the best way I've ever heard her described is that she's a pair of pants for the reader to try to put themselves in and live the story through.
Oh yeah, no, that's like honestly, I'm pretty sure the writer even admitted that at one point, that she wrote her to be very simple and not too. She's not particularly anything. She's not any way inclined, and the idea is that you're just kind of, and it's also written from her perspective as well. So you see the world through her eyes, and if she doesn't have any features that make her like for example, if she walked in and goes, "Hi, I'm Bella, I'm a Democrat," well then all the Republicans are going to be like, "Well, we don't like this character." But if you just make her a totally neutral character who has no opinions one way or the other, then it's so easy to slip into it. It's like being in an RPG. When they're like, your character wakes up with amnesia, so they basically have no personality. Go.
Oh god, man! I read those books. I actually read those books because I didn't know what they were. I just saw a series of books about vampires.
Someone told me they were vampires, and I'm like, cool, vampires
yes.
are badass.
And then they started putting werewolves.
The first book.
Then they started bringing in werewolves, and I was like, oh, sick, maybe that'll actually be cool. And they're like, oh, there's a war between the vampires and Earth. This is and she entirely avoided any of the potential all of those setups had. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Anyway, an ascendant focus.
even if it was a dream sequence and kind of like cheap, I did like the fight scene at the end of the last movie.
I have not disliked something more in my entire life, I think. Actually, no, in the literary world anyway. In the I didn't even like the book by the time I finished it. I was just finishing it to finish it because I was stuck in a caravan for 2 weeks with my family.
Yeah.
And like I was there, and then I got to that, and I was like, "Oh, sick! He died, and he died, and she died, and he died, and he. Oh, I love this. It was a dream." And I threw the book across the room, and I was like, "I will never waste my time like this again." And
it's like, I don't. If it was the book, I would hate it. But I don't mind as much in the movie because at least I got to see a cool fight scene.
No,
if you just take that fight scene as it is, it's pretty cool. But as soon as they're like, yeah, none of that happened, you're like, oh, so all the feelings I had are invalid. Cool.
I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
There's okay, we're going on a weird Twilight tangent here, and
yeah.
I'm not gonna stop it. There's one of my favorite cinematic moments.
I think we may just be talking about Hoard weapons today, folks.
One of my favorite moments ever in just a cinematography moments in history happens in the second movie, I think it is, when Edward leaves. Okay, he's gone, and she has her whole depressed, like angsty phase, and she's like, "I'll never love again, even though I'm 17." And it's really angsty and bad. But at the end, they meet up. Are they called the Volturi?
The Volturi. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
So they go to them, and Edward almost revealed the existence of vampires, and there's a whole thing.
Walks out and takes his shirt off in Rome. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he tries to fight the big guy who's way stronger than him, and he like bashes him around like Hulk style with Loki. He flops him around on the marble a bit, and then there's a bit, and I don't understand why they went with this take.
Is it the one where Michael Sheen goes?
No, Michael Sheen is so good. No, it's the bit. It's on Kristen Stewart, and the camera looks just at her. She's in focus. There's a few people behind her. She takes like 2 steps forward, right? And because it looks like Edward's about to get his head caved in. And she takes 2 steps forwards and she goes, no, no. And she turns sideways, right? She turns her full body sideways like this. And then she like arches her back and tips her head back. And she puts one hand kind of out like this. Just kind of like this. And her other hand comes up on her hair like that, right? And for some reason, her reaction to her boyfriend getting his head caved in is no, 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 like that. And she does this weird pose, and it's the stupidest thing. But I never fail to laugh at it because I'm like, that's the take you went with. The first movie, I get it. You were trying something out. But by the time the second movie came around, you had your claws into that fan base deep. You could have demanded any amount of money from the studios. I know you could have gotten a better take if you wanted to. Why did you go with that take?
Because no one cared. Because nobody cared, Conor. That's why.
It's so funny. I literally every time Tara watches them, rewatches them regularly.
Oh god!
And like I'll walk through the room and I'll catch bits and I'll point out that this is stupid, or I'll point out that that's actually kind of cool. But when that scene comes up, I never fail to laugh my arse off because I think it's the single funniest shot of any character between the cinematography and how it's framed, the pose she's taking, the way she screams, and just the context of the entire scene. Nothing works, and yet they left it into this like multi-million-dollar movie that was raking in so much money the world over, and they're like, yeah, that'll do, whatever. Kristen, go and take a smoke break.
So Ascendant focuses have the slumbering, stirring, and waking properties, and in addition, which is the really cool thing, when you cast a first level or higher spell while holding the focus, it's treated as if you casted it at 9th.
Oh my god, I forgot about this. Yeah, that's insane.
Pulling Conor back out of Forks River, Pennsylvania, I believe it was.
I think it's
Oregon. It's Oregon.
Washington.
Washington. Yeah, it's Oregon. No, it is Washington. She's always complaining about the rain. But yeah, you literally like any spell.
That's why they go there, because it's always cloudy and vampires.
Stop! I will refuse to talk about this anymore. I'm not talking about fucking Twilight anymore on our D&D podcast. Jesus fuck.
I love just bringing in the weirdest, like I love when like I brought up Downton like 2 weeks ago. Like I love bringing up the most obscure shit, and you just be like, why are we? This is our D&D podcast, Conor. Can we not talk about Downton Abbey and Twilight?
I don't mind obscure stuff. I really don't, but Twilight just drives me absolutely insane. Do you want to take the drag?
Yes. Okay. First of all, yes, we'll finish off that. The Ascendant feature there. So when you cast a spell, a first level higher, only focus. Okay. Oh, it's a once a day. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I was like, if you did it with every single spell, that's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah. Sorry. I think the Twilight kind of slightly distracted her. That is a once a day ability, but it's still incredibly fucking powerful.
It's insane. I mean, I'm just thinking like even a 9th level magic missile or something like that.
Oh
like
my
a guaranteed
God, yeah.
9th level magic missile.
And it's what, like with magic missile, is it every level above first you get another D4?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's 8. It's an additional 84 on top of the 3 you get as.
But then you also get an 84 plus 8 because you get a +1 on each of them as well.
Yeah. And like the initial one is the initial cast the initial cast for the first level is 3 of them, isn't it? It's 3 darts or 4?
It's 3 darts originally, so you get 11 total.
Ooh.
So it's 11 D4 plus 11, but it's also a guaranteed hit.
And it's force damage.
And it's force damage. So honestly, that's really good. There was one I was trying to so I wanted to look up banishment. Because I know if you cast banishment at higher levels, you can banish more people.
Oh god, at 9th level banishment, you just take the encounter out.
So it's a 4th level spell. When you cast this spell, a spell slot of 5th level or higher, you can target 1 additional creature for each slot above 4th level. So if you cast this and then make it a 9th level spell,
you can do a party.
You could do a full party. You could do
that's
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 6 people total you can banish in a single turn if you use this ability. That's insane. That's so good. Imagine being in a campaign, right? And the bad guy is wielding this, and you travel to a different plane. You're like, we're gonna go to Avernus and we're gonna kill Zariel, and then she has this ability, and she just goes, "Oh, you're on my plane. Get out!" And she just taps her staff, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, we're all back in the material plane. Crap." I guess we need to go the whole way back to Avernus to get the whole way back to her palace or whatever. I thought read through the book fully.
I've a real love-hate relationship with banishment because I love it. I love it as a spell. I love the concept. I've used it a couple of times. It's been responsible for. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I also get banished a lot, and that's actually more my fault because I just run in going, hit me, and then obviously we'll just not deal with you, screaming man, go away.
Like one of the first boss encounters I had you guys do when you were at level 5 odd, I want to say, in the first campaign, you were banished from like the second round until after the fight was done.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that well. And then on the train, was that on the train? No, it's in the prison. There were 2 spellcasters, and then she tried to banish me. I rolled a nat 20 on the charisma save, and then the next spellcaster's turn came, and like, she banishes you, and she did.
Yeah. Banishment, honestly, banishment's like a DM's best friend.
It is. It really is.
It's just like, this character is doing too much damage. I need you out of here, so I can, whatever. I've often felt bad whenever Travis Willingham gets banished as Grog. He got banished a few times, and like he's a barbarian. He gets his joy from fighting, and he got banished for like whole fights. And I think I remember Matt like once apologizing. He was like, "Sorry, buddy," and Travis was like, "It's okay."
Yeah, I've been there. Do you want to take the dragon?
Let's do Draconic Vessel.
Yes.
Okay. So the vessel looks like a potion, bottle, drinking horn, or other container. By the way, all of these things are not specified that they look like. Even the
weapons and the focuses just say they have these themes. You can make them kind of look like whatever you want.
That could be a staff, a wand, an orb, a crystal. Any of the focuses that you have. It could even technically be
same with the weapons. That could be anything from a dagger to a glaive.
That could, I mean, exactly, yeah. And the spellcasting or the focus can that be a? I'd have to check that properly. Could that be a cleric focus or
cleric focuses are normally their holy symbol.
Oh, sorry, holy symbol. Yeah, I knew there was a wording difference, and I was trying to think of it there. Yeah. So this one's a potion bottle. So as a bonus action, if this vessel is empty, you can speak the command word to have this vessel fill with one of the following of your choice: ale, olive oil, a potion of healing, or a potion of climbing. Once it's properly used, it can't be used again until the next dawn. A potion you create in this way loses its magical property if it isn't imbibed, that means drank, within 24 hours. So that's the uncommon. Right away, you have a once-a-day potion of healing that's basically reusable every single day. That's really cool.
Potion of climbing as well, that's super underrated, I think. Climbing is one of those things that no one thinks of, but like will catch so many parties off because so few people do like it. But like there's normally about like one to two like strength users in a party, and everyone else picks Dex because Dex is the uber stat. Like,
but it doesn't matter. Like people often try to, I think, use Dex to be like, oh, can I flip and jump and skip my way up the wall? And I'm like, no, because it's an athletics thing.
I just usually go, tell me how you're going to dexterously launch the entire weight of your body from a solid standing position up a wall.
Yeah. You can certainly fall with good grace using Dex, but it's Dex down, strength up.
Yeah, totally.
So the next one is the stirring one. This is rare, same as before. So it works the same as before, but you can also get a potion of fire breath or a potion of greater healing out of it, which is really cool.
I really like how this one actually scales as well compared to the other, because this is obviously a more supportive item. But just in terms of it goes potion, greater healing potion, potion of climbing, potion of fire breath, and then for the one you're about cells.
The next one then is you can get a so the awakened state is a potion of flying or a potion of superior healing, which is fantastic. That's so good. That's 8d4 plus 8. Like that's so good. Yeah. Then the final one is, again, all the same as before. Oh, actually, I missed this one before. You can make it filled with whiskey in the legendary stage.
Yeah. I do like that they do. Oops,
Oh, and then in the rare stage, you can make it filled with mead. I completely skipped over. I was just looking at the potions. But yeah, you can make it mead at the rare state. you can fill the vest. Oh, you can make it wine at the Awakened state. That's cool. And then you can make it whiskey at the Ascendant state. I like how whiskey is the legendary one. As a whiskey drinker, I enjoy that the whiskey one is the most rare.
Make it cider. That's grand.
And then for the final one, you can do a potion of supreme healing. I don't think I've ever even given out a potion of supreme healing.
It's 10d4 plus 20 hit points.
Yeah. So you're potentially looking at probably an average of like 40 odd hit points restored there, which is really good. And then you get a potion of Dragon's Majesty.
This is one of the coolest potions in the game. It may be the coolest.
So the potion looks like liquid gold, which a single scale from a chromatic dragon or metallic dragon chromatic gem or metallic dragon is suspended in. When you drink this potion, you transform into an adult dragon of that same kind as the dragon and scale. That's the dragon and scale came from. God, I can't read. The transformation lasts for an hour. Any equipment you're wearing melds into your new form or falls to the ground, your choice. For the duration, you can use the game statistics of an adult dragon instead of your own, but you retain your languages, personality, and memories. You can't use the dragon's shape change. What's it say? What's this? You can't use a dragon's shape change or any of its legendary or layer actions. That makes sense. That's fine.
Yeah. That's the third stage of Shamash's vestige that we had from our first game as a
I gave him the Horn of Kefalax, which was essentially the charisma stone. As far as my Infinity Stone attribute player stat things went, and in its final stage, I let him turn into an adult blue dragon. As a transformation with that, he could do once. I think I want to say it was once, and then he had to roll a d6, and that was how many days later he could do it again or something like that. It wasn't often.
It wasn't super often.
But he did get to use it in the final fight, which is good because I feeble-minded him. I sound like a really terrible person, but I'm actually I'm a nice DM. Do you want to do the scaled ornament then, the final one?
Yeah, I'll do the scaled ornament. This one, I thought when I read the name of it, I was like, oh, it doesn't sound to me as impressive, but it was actually this is seriously I would not turn my nose up at this. So yeah, similarly, just as a wondrous item, so it can be pretty much anything. It can be jewelry, a cloak, or another wearable accessory. So literally, go nuts if you want to make a dragon mask. Hell yeah. And in its slumbering states, you have advantage on saving throws. So this is the uncommon. You have advantage on saving throws you make to avoid being charmed or frightened or to end those conditions on you. That's really, really good. Because particularly for uncommon,
that's really powerful for uncommon. Yeah.
So many low level creatures will have fear or charm effects in their kit. So that's super, super good.
And some classes give you monks and paladins get abilities to be either immune to or to end those effects as an action, but not until much, much later. So you'd get this an uncommon item realistically, in my opinion,
5 to 8.
I'd even say less. I'd say between 3 to 6, I would say. That's around the 5 mark, give or take, is where I'd put uncommon items.
Yeah. No, it's so, and that's so strong as well. Particularly because it's not just the initial save, but if you do fail that save, you then have advantage on the following saves to overcome the fear.
Yeah, it's not just you have a constant advantage on that, which is just really, really cool.
Then Stirring, which is the rare stage, you gain a +1 bonus to AC. You can't be charmed or frightened, and each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you has advantage on saving throws to avoid being charmed or frightened, or to end those conditions on themselves. So this gives you +1 to AC, and basically a boosted version of the Paladin 11th level aura, which is the Aura of Courage.
Yeah, this is I honestly, maybe this is the one that's probably the most OP when you think about the rarity and what it gives you per rarity. This is kind of an earthquake. If the epicenter previously was you getting these abilities, now everyone within 30 feet of you gets them, and at the center where you are, you're just immune to those 2 effects, and you get a +1 to your AC.
Yeah, and then that's where we come to the Wakened stage. Wakened Ornaments has a stirring property, and in addition, when you would take damage of the type dealt by the breath weapon of the dragon in whose hoard the ornament became wakened, that is a sentence. You can use your reaction to take no damage. Wait a second.
Hold up.
This paragraph is 2 sentences.
Apparently, it doesn't make you immune to run-on sentences.
Yeah, it does, however, make you blind to punctuation. No, I'm joking. But yeah, that's just a very long phrase. It's
I
three.
laughed too
Okay,
hard.
it's
I laughed too hard at your punctuation joke there.
it's three sentences technically this person. But anyway, yeah. When you would take damage of the type dealt by the breath of the dragon in whose hoard the ornament became wakened, you can use a reaction to take no damage instead, and you regain hit points equal to the damage you would have taken. So to say that in a much more condensed form,
Oh, do you need to take a breath? Do you need to take a breather for a second?
if you're attacked by a dragon of the same kind as the item you are wearing, you can use your reaction to take no damage from its breath weapon and instead heal from it.
When you take damage of the type that actually it's not even the same kind, so it doesn't have to be gold dragon. You could be a gold dragon attacked by a red dragon with both with fire, as long as it's the same element.
Type, same element.
Yeah.
And you regain hit points equal to the damage you would have taken, and you can't use that again until you reach the next on, which is unbelievable. Like in my head, that's do you know in the extended edition of Two Towers, and Saruman just shoots the bolt of fire down on Gandalf, and it just hits him, and then you're like, oh, Gandalf's fucked, and then it just like burns away, and he's got this like golden aura. Or like, or in my head, it's the adventure where like they're journeying through like the dragon's cave in the dark with a torch, and then they see fire at the end. They're like, "What's that?" And you realize the dragon has opened its mouth in front of you and just grabs the cloak in like Dracula style in front of him, like just pull it around.
That happened in Batman Forever. I want to say, was it Batman Forever? There was one of them where they threw a bomb into a construction site, and he pulled his cape over, and the cape went all like slick, or it looked like kind of metallic on the outside, and it basically shielded him from the blast because he was immune to fire. That was fireproof cloak. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's a second reference to one of the original 4 Batman villains.
Yeah, and then the final stage is the Ascendant stage. The Ascendant ornament has the Stirring and Waken properties. In addition, while you're wearing the ornament, you gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can hover. And while you are flying using this speed, spectral dragon wings appear on your back. So cool. I just love that. I like
and always fly speed.
Man, can you imagine if you kitted someone out with like a dragon's wrath weapon, a draconic ornament, a scaled ornament, and a dragon vessel? Like,
imagine, like, I mean, even not even one person. Like, you could do. First of all, I think you could do a really cool, very dragon-heavy campaign where like you have people hunting for these like artifacts, these draconic artifacts, and then like at the end game, it's like, cool, now face down an ancient red dragon or like a red great worm to scale up.
Yeah.
And you have, and like the alchemist in the party gets this really cool potion bottle. The the bard gets this this really cool set of, I don't know, it's a nose ring. Why not?
Yeah.
And then what else we got? The wizard gets the dragon touched focus, and the paladin gets the weapon, or the wrath weapon. Like, and then they're like, cool, let's go in there and kick this great worm's ass. Like, you know, I think it'd be so cool.
Yeah, I like. There's so much in Fizzbands to lean towards, just into like, yeah, I'm going to do a really cool, entirely dragons based campaign, and like these are just additionally awesome. Like, I love it so much. Yeah, I think we can probably quickly have a chat about Vestiges very quickly, and maybe just maybe quickly. But yeah.
I thought we'd talk about Twilight more, but okay.
We think we did that enough today, Conor. You know.
Look, everyone's tolerance is different. All right, I could have gone a lot longer.
Do you know what? You can indulge that tolerance a different day with someone else. But yeah, Conor, we're both pretty familiar with Vestiges, given that we have both made our own. But Vestiges would follow a very similar kind of evolution path to these, where they have multiple stages, and in each stage they get like incrementally more powerful until the final stage, where they will have a third final ability that's usually the most powerful, and then probably like the previous 2 stages will receive some kind of buff. For example, a +1 going to a +3, or if it's a weapon and it does like additional damage, going from like a d6 to like 3 or 4 d6 by the end. And they normally advance through either like moments of extreme emotion, or a revelation about a character's true destiny, like the death of a comrade, defeating like a long sought after enemy, that kind of thing. Basically, like important story moments and like emotional beats for a character.
Yeah, kind of pivotal points of development for the character in the campaign, whether it's hitting a certain level milestone, or well, like you said, whether they finally killed the enemy they've been hunting for, who, you know, slaughtered their village or whatever for 10 years now.
Exactly. And like, we probably don't have the time to go into them in any kind of really great depth. But if I was to ask Connor, do you have a favourite vestige from either the Tal'Dorei campaign setting or the Wildmount book that just comes to mind immediately?
There's one that I thought was really, really cool, and only because I have an idea for a class that came to mind recently. Or not for a class rather, but just for a character build. There's the Vermin Shroud, which appears in Explorer's Guide. So this is it's a legendary. It requires attunement. It's a patchy cloak pieced together from various rat pelts. It gets better, trust me. So in its dormant state, you have advantage on perception checks that rely on smell. You are immune to disease. You have dark vision out to a range of 60, unless you already have dark vision, in which case the cloak extends it. I love that, by the way. I love any time where something's like, you have dark vision, but if you already have dark vision, it's now better dark vision, instead of it just like not stacking.
My Moon Vestige does that for my Blood Hunter. He's got 60 feet of dark vision. No, 30 feet of dark vision, sorry. No, 90 feet of dark vision. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I've seen. I can't remember where else, but there is other things where it's like if you already have dark vision,
that's the
60,
Gloom Stalker.
Yes, and they get 90 feet of dark vision, which is. But I like that though. It's like, okay, we're not going to give you a full 60 more, but even it means you can still definitely see the furthest, unless you're a warlock in your party, and they will absolutely have Devil Sight. So yeah, and then as an action with the Vermin Shroud, you can cast Polymorph on yourself, transforming into a giant rat or a regular rat, retaining all your intelligence scores and blah blah blah, and the property can't be used again until the next dawn. So it seems really, really silly, but I like this a lot because it's just, first of all, it seems like the worst possible thing you would ever wear in your entire life.
I feel like you should have disadvantage on all like charisma based checks while wearing this.
Exactly. People won't talk to you while you're attuned to the cloak. Yeah, but I love the advantage. I love the dark vision. I love anything that, it's good to have dark vision. But I love the advantage on smell perception checks and the immune to disease thing. It's like, look, you're wearing a cloak filled with rat pelts. At this point, you better be immune to disease.
Do you know what's terrible about it though? They're like, yeah, you can have advantage on smell-based perception checks, so you know exactly how bad you smell.
Yeah.
But it just won't affect you. You're immune to disease.
Exactly. And then in its awakened state, you have resistance to poison. Great. You can cast Insect Plague at a spell save DC 15, requiring no material components. Can't do that again until the next day. And when you polymorph, you can turn into a giant wasp with the polymorph ability. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Just because it gives you a fly speed, and all that, which is cool. And you can, I'm pretty sure giant wasps are size large, so you can pick people up and you can fly your comrades. Or the medium. Oh,
yeah. If you mouse over
you can
there,
fly halflings to places.
Yeah, halflings, dwarves, gnomes.
Dwarves are medium.
Oh shit.
Yeah. No halflings, gnomes, kobolds, goblins. But I like that.
Fairies.
I like it.
Heron.
So it starts off with just being like the rat thing, but then it gets into other vermin like insects and stuff like that, which I love. And then the final one is you gain a climbing speed equal to a walking speed. Very cool. Like you said a while ago, climbing very underrated. Your teeth become razor sharp natural weapons which you can use to make unarmed strikes. They deal a d6 plus a strength mod. Instead of bludgeoning damage, which you would normally do for an unarmed strike, it's piercing, of course. You can make the attack. You can make this attack as a bonus action. When you bite the creature that deal damage to the creature, must make a DC 17 con check, a saving throw, or be poisoned for a minute. So you can bite people and disease them with this. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each turn, and when you polymorph, you can turn into a giant scorpion. It seems really silly and all that, but I just think it's really cool because they had this idea for a druid character. I struggle with druids because I struggle to get away from the I'm a loner living in the forest, loving trees kind of motif. But I thought it was this cool one where I play a shepherd, Circle of the Shepherd, and then I would be like, my background would be like urchin, and like I just made friends. I live in a city. I've never been into a forest, but I live in a city, and I live in grubby alleyways and stuff, and I made friends with all the rats. But like at like a relatively low level, you gain access to summon beasts or whatever, so summon animals or conjure animals, and it lets you summon like 8 hordes of rats. Like eight swarms of rats that you can summon in, and then if you're a shepherd or Circle of the Shepherd, they gain a buff to their health points based on your level. So they actually get more health points, and you can basically summon a plague at someone really easily.
You could be Ratcatcher 2 from Suicide Squad, like the end of Suicide Squad.
I have not seen it.
Oh,
I have not seen it.
shit.
I
Sorry.
Although no, it's funny. It's funny you mention actually because I was in GameStop today and I saw the Ratcatcher
Ratcatcher 2. Yeah.
pop. But then I don't remember that guy in the trailers, and I made a mental note of not remembering him from the trailers. So it's funny you bring it up now. But it's that's one of those things. Yeah, but I just think that's a really cool one. It's very silly. I think it would pair well with that character idea I had, where you're just like, oh, hey guys, here's us. Like it's just like a sea. Remember that in Simpsons when the music teacher was sitting on the thing, and he's like, "Oh, a bug," and he flicked it off his shoulder, and then all the snakes on Whacking Day came all over.
Yeah.
It would just be like that. Someone would be like, "Ew, a bug," and I'd be just like, "Rats."
Yeah, that's pretty sick, man.
I'd like it.
I like this. I like this though because you picked a vestige. I picked something from the Arms of the Betrayers. Which
yeah.
It's been my favorite vestige for a while.
Wait, I'm gonna guess. Can I guess?
Yeah, sure. You'll definitely.
It's Ruin's Wake.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's definitely Ruin's Wake. One, that's an awesome name for a spear. Because Ruin is the name of War's horse in Darksiders. Like
I love what the description of it, because the spear is made from the ivory bone of an ancient gold dragon carved into a spear. Like you basically took the femur of a gold dragon and whittled it down into a spear that a person can use.
And it's carved with a hymn to Grumsh, the god of orcs.
War god.
Yeah. So it's also sentient. It is the spirit of it's a sentient chaotic evil weapon, the intelligence of 20, wisdom of 16, and charisma of 22. It has hearing and dark vision out to 120 feet. And it communicates telepathically with the reader and allows you to read, speak, and understand Abyssal, Common, and Orc. The spirit living in it is a slaughter-loving Balor named Yarrowish, and the weapon desires only to draw blood and pushes its wielder to solve problems with violence. In its dormant form, you get the read, speak, and write Abyssal and Orc, +1 to attacking damage rolls, and it deals an extra D8 piercing damage to anything it hits. And then as a reaction, when you're hit by a melee attack, you can make a melee attack with Ruin's Wake with advantage against the attacker, which is basically I think it's like 17th level barbarian ability, retaliation, or retaliatory strike.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which is
it's definitely up there. I can't remember which level
it might be a berserker thing, actually. I'm not sure. But that's really good.
No, it is. You're right. It's berserker. I was reading it the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have in the awakened form, the attack and damage bonuses increase to +2, and the piercing damage increases to 2d8. And when you hurl the spear and speak a command word, it'll transform into a bolt of lightning, forming a 5 feet wide line that extends out from you to a creature you can see within 120 feet. And every creature in the line, excluding you, has to make a DC 15 dex save or take 8d6 lightning damage.
Did you mention in the first state, in the dormant state, that if you make a range attack, it flies back to your hand?
No, I didn't. I knew it did that, but I didn't. But yeah, it flies back to your hand like Mjolnir.
Yeah.
I think I missed it, and then because it mentions it again here, I didn't. But a Ruin's Wake then returns to your hand after you do that, which is sick, because that's the problem with the Javelin Lightning. You throw it, then you have to go get it.
You have to go get it, yeah. It sucks.
And then finally, in its exalted state, +3 to attack and damage rolls, and while holding the spear, you can let out a battle cry as a bonus action. Each creature you choose within 30 feet gains advantage on attack rolls until the start of your next turn, and you can't use that property again until the next dawn. And then the final one is when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with attack from the spear, you regain hit points equal to the damage you dealt with the attack, and that can't be used again till the next dawn.
In Exalted, it's +3.
Yeah, +3.
Or the battle cry advantage. Oh, that's very like the Zealot Barbarian ability, actually. Yeah.
So it's got +3, does an additional 3d8 piercing damage on hit, I think, is it? Yeah. So
does that scale up as well?
Sorry, no, that doesn't scale up in the third form. But it's a +3, does an additional 2d8 piercing on hit, can turn into a bolt of lightning doing 8d6 damage, returns to your hand. You can let a battle cry out, and when you kill something, you heal for the damage you did with the death blow. And obviously,
if ever you were going to build we talked about orcs actually on our D&D chat during the week, because I was looking them up, and I remember when I read them in the polos, I thought the minus to intelligence makes them really bad, because I'm like, no other classes are minus, why should orcs? And they've since retconned that all over. Obviously still in printed stuff, it still says it, but if you look at any of the versions of orc that exist on D&D Beyond, they all just have a +2 to con, +1 to strength, I believe it is. Well, and they actually make for really, really good like close quarters fighters. Whether they want to be a fighter, paladin, barbarian. Honestly, you could even be a really good rogue because
Monk.
the idea is you. Well, monk. We talked about monk actually, yeah. Because they get a thing where they can, as a bonus action, they can choose to move their full speed towards an enemy. And that's basically they basically get a dash just from a racial bonus as long as it's in the direction of someone they plan on hitting.
I love that. That's
It's really, really cool.
That's mechanics and character working perfectly together.
Yeah, I was thinking. I was thinking that if there's one thing I would give orcs, if I was doing them, I'd give them the same thing that hill dwarves have, where they gain +2 to their health every single level, because I feel like orcs are going to be really, really rugged. They're going to be really tough,
and they only live for like 50 years anyway. Like, it's a fucking might as well. But like, yeah, you live short life, but you're hard to kill during those 50 years.
Yeah, you're 8 foot tall, a wall of muscle, and you got a ton of. You're just a sack of hit points. Like, I think it'd be great, but I still think they're really good anyway. And if you give this to an orc, any sort of orc fighter, warrior, paladin, whatever, I mean, even just that last ability, where you regain health. Rushing into the fray, stabbing people left, right, and center, dropping them to like every time you kill someone, drop them to a thing. You just like, cool, more health. I can keep on fighting all day long with that, like, you know.
The original incarnation of Lug had a great axe called Crichton's axe that did so a slightly less powerful but more usable version of that. Where every time I killed something, half the damage I did to kill it was healed back to me as temporary hit points.
That's kind of like how the blood axe works, actually.
Yeah, and that's powerful on a tank, like, because you can just continually just tap off your own health while you're just trying to like block things and damage things and stuff like that. That's my favorite one is Ruin's Wake, just because, goddamn, it's awesome.
But Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have for today.
We might do a more in-depth episode on Vestiges maybe at a later date if something people want to hear about, but I think we've covered quite a lot of it already anyway, just generally. That was Hoard items and Vestiges, folks, and that was super awesome.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
Mostly people can find me on the internet here on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time. But if you otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is in the bottom right hand corner of my screen here, and you can also find me on the Micflayers podcast Twitter account, which is at Micflayers Pod, also in the furthest right hand corner of your screen. Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. And like Martin said, as always, every Friday here at 6 p.m. Irish time on the Micflayers podcast. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, and Radio Republic. Guys, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sorry, you're hosting. You sign off.
It's great. Yeah, thanks guys very much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our episode. If you have any questions, comments, queries, or even just some memes, please don't be afraid to reach out to us either through comments here or on Twitter, either public or in DMs. And that'll be a goodbye from Conor.
Hello, folks.
And it'll be a goodbye from me. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Micflayers podcast. Bye bye.
Bye bye.